Welcome to Therapy Unplugged, the podcast where two therapists offer insights to the real-life issues we all experience. We are your hosts, Sarah Benoit and Megan McCullough. Welcome back, listeners. Sarah here. I just wanted to do a quick follow-up to our full episode that we just finished on self-care. And one of the things that Megan touched on in that last episode was the idea of inventory. And she had offered up a self-care inventory that she had discovered. And that made me think that there might be some listeners out there that want to create a self-care plan. Now, this isn't going to be for everyone. I completely understand that. But if you're a planner, if you're trying to really establish some new habits or want to be more intentional about incorporating self-care into your life, this might be helpful. Like a lot of things, self-care is not a linear process. There are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be twists and turns. And this is where I think having a plan or a guide might be helpful in keeping you on track or at least keeping your end game in purview. So I'm going to give you this is how I would do it. It's just really a brief outline of how to create your own self-care plan. And as I go through this, I think it looks like I've outlined 5 steps. And what I will tell you is when we hit the third step, and it might be helpful now if you want to actually pause and look at the show notes, because I've included in there's an article and there's 2 other resources that you might find helpful. If you don't want to do it now, obviously not a problem. But for those of you that kind of like to go along. So here's my outline of how I would create or at least start maybe creating your own self-care plan. So the first step is to evaluate your necessities. So what do I mean by this? This is about breaking down the various aspects of your life. For example, home, work, maybe school, relationships, some of the categories we've talked about before, if you want to break them down into physical health, emotional health, spiritual health. And then when you look at those areas, what activities are required of you in those different categories? Step number 2, what are your stressors? So when you think of those different areas of your life that you just broke down, what are the challenges or the stressors that come up in these areas? Step number 3 is start brainstorming ways to challenge these stressors. And this is really where the self-care planning begins. And for example, I would start with what are your current positive coping strategies and self-care activities? Everyone has them. Sometimes we don't even realize we do have them. So think about, think of one of those stressors, and if that comes up, what works for you? What really helps in those times? And I think taking it a step further, how can you expand on these? How can you refine or maybe even incorporate completely new ideas? So this is where, if you go into the show notes, the attachments can be very helpful. So I found one self-care assessment that I really liked, and it's from the University of Buffalo School of Social Work. And it has things on there. It breaks it out in terms of physical self-care, psychological self-care. Let's see what else is in there. Relationship self-care, emotional, spiritual, workplace, that kind of thing. But what I really like about this is that when you rate it, it's a 3, 2, 1, 0 or question mark. And the question mark is this never occurred to me. And I like that because even as much as I focus on self-care, and I talk about this all the time with clients, there are things that I will see and say, wow, yeah, that never occurred to me. And There was one when I looked at this as an example, under physical self-care, wear clothes I like. And I think a lot of us probably take that for granted. And but I will tell you on the days that I, am dressed up or I get to, wear something that I really enjoy, I feel better. And I guess I didn't think of it in the terms of self-care, but that is lifting my mood and I might be carrying myself, a little brighter. So that's just an example. There's another let's see, I don't know remember who this was from. It's in the show notes. But what I like about this attachment is if you're not the kind of person who wants to create your own charts and break things down and say, "Okay, I don't wanna have to think too much about this," it gives you templates. So, it gives you things and in terms of identifying your self-care needs, it will break out everything I've already mentioned, and then there's a column for what are your current practices, and then what do you want to try? And this is where I think it's helpful because some people are visual and they need to see something in writing and see, "Oh, yeah, that's what I'm trying to work on," or "That's what I want to, um, try next." So, the last thing I wanna mention, and again, this is another attachment in the show notes, but when we were preparing for the full episode in self-care, I was thinking of using Maslow's hierarchy of needs as a guide. And what I discovered is there is actually a ton of information out there. And if you did a quick Google search, you're going to find, especially image wise, a ton of images that might be useful. But what I did is I attached an article that I found on AllPsych that talks about self-care through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy. And it really, for me, was a different approach, and I liked that. And I know in the bigger picture, preparing for the last episode, it really helped me frame things. So I wanted to make sure I shared that in case it was helpful for you. Step 4 is have a plan for when obstacles happen or if there are difficult times. Other people will call this like emergency self-care. For example, let's say you realize you're overlooking or ignoring an aspect of your life. Have a plan to correct the course. This doesn't have to be a huge shift. Even if you identify one small area to make a change, this is going to be helpful in your bigger picture. And I think one of the things that's really important at this stage is to be compassionate with yourself and not beat yourself up. Like I said before, self care is not a linear process. Life happens. And I think one of the most important things is to remember that we're all very resilient. And the last step that I throw out there for the plan is to make self care a priority. Focusing on self care in whatever ways work for you, it's going to help bring your best self, to your relationships, your work, everything else that falls in between that. I hope that you have found this helpful. Take good care. If you want to share your thoughts or ideas with us, you can email us at therapyunpluggedpodcast@proton.me. Until next time, be sure to subscribe to Therapy Unplugged on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts.